Chris Perry sitting in. Melissa, good evening.
Thanks, Thomas. Thanks to you at home for being with us for the next hour. Rachel has the night off, but we have an important day of news to try to understand. Now, we're awaiting a live news conference by officials in Aurora, Colorado, which we will bring you when it happens. Chances are you woke up this morning to find out that a midnight showing of the biggest movie of the year, something went horrifically wrong. At 12:39 a.m. Mountain Time, police in Aurora, Colorado, outside Denver, began receiving multiple calls from the Century 16 movie theater. Witnesses say a man entered Theater 9 through an emergency exit side door near the front of the auditorium, not long into the showing of the new Batman movie, The Dark Knight Rises. The man was dressed entirely in black, and he was wearing a gas mask. At first, the moviegoers, some of them in costume, thought the man was just part of the show. But then the intruder threw a small canister into the crowd, and it made a hissing sound, and the smoke started filling the theater, packed with some 200 people. Then came the sound of the gunshots as the man started firing indiscriminately into the crowd.
Everybody knew it was real at that point, and they just started, it was just straight chaos. You know, everybody was starting to scream and run, and at that point he went straight from here to here with a gun in my face at that point. That rifle was in my face, and I honestly didn't know what to think. I just instinctively jumped forward and ducked inside the, the middle of the aisle and just tucked in a corner, and after that he was shooting people behind me, and I had like gun shells just, falling on my head, burning my forehead. All I smelled was powder, and it was just really terrifying.
Me and my friend were standing there like clueless, like what should we do? Should we stay here or go out there where they're shooting? But everybody's going up to the exit, so we're like, okay, we're just gonna go to the crowd.
After the gunshots all stopped, everyone tried to race for the exit at the top of the theater. I went into the row above me. I was 4 rows from the top, went to the row above me, and I tripped and slipped on some blood and landed on a lady. I shook the lady, told her, we need to get up, you need to go, and there was no response, so I presumed she was dead and hurried and got myself out of there with my friends.
It seemed like he was reloading whatever weapon he had, and that was the time when we realized that, we need to run. So we just ran down the stairs, and then we just ran out the theater.
We saw people outside the theater faces covered in blood, backs covered in blood, and it was a terrible sight to see.
You saw a lot of people running back in, and then as we were leaving, you saw a lot of people crying.
Some people, they had bullet holes going through their stomachs. The little girl, she had one, it looked like it was going through her stomach, and then the blood coming down her legs. There was a cop just holding her, and she looked lifeless.
As you've just seen and heard, the stories are indescribable. Survivors who were trying to flee the theater described slipping on a floor that was slick with blood and greasy with popcorn butter. Some of them say they had to crawl on their bellies to stay below the smoke and the gunfire, and some of them tried to drag each other from the smoke-filled chaos. One young man made it to the door of the auditorium and says he was about to close the door behind him when he saw the shooter approaching, dressed in a bulletproof vest and still wearing his gas mask. The young man said he held the door closed as the gunman banged on it for about 10 seconds, afraid the shooter would start firing again through the door. And the young man says he let the door go and managed to run out of the theater. 10 people did not make it out of the theater. They died at the scene. 2 more died at area hospitals. 59 others were injured, many of them critically. Among the dead is Jessica Renfield, but we are now going to go to the press conference and Police Chief Oates.
Thank you for being here. My name is Daniel Oates. I'm the Chief of Police here in Aurora, and I think it'd be best to begin the press conference by introducing our Governor, John Hickenlooper, to make some remarks. Governor Hickenlooper.
So, this has been a long day, and I appreciate how long a day it's been for all of you in the media. We are seeing this community rise up and do the things that great communities do. We're dealing with this. We have 70 casualties, not 71. There was a double reporting there. But the stories are going to come out of this, of how in a remarkably short time the police force in Aurora responded to this situation, their efficiency in making an apprehension, the ability of our hospitals in remarkably short order to take care of all of these casualties in incredible systems. And I'm not saying it was all perfect, but as this story is told, it will be remarkable. As of 3:30, we still had 30 patients in hospitals, 11 still in critical condition. This is an act that defies description. You can't connect emotions that we commonly think of. I mean, everyone I've talked to all day is filled with an anger that can't find focus. And I think the challenge for all of us as a community is to recognize that we have to move past that. Obviously, there's going to be a level of accountability. This individual is clearly disturbed. Either we will or we will not know exactly the roots of that, of how deep that disturbance is. We know how deep it is, but where it came from. But we are clear that we are going to rise back and lift ourselves above this. I visited several of the families in the hospital, and we're going to have, obviously, when you have that many people that have been injured, you're going to have people with lifetime disabilities. And we are already, as a community, beginning to come together. GivingFirst.org. Within 3 hours, we had $125,000 in matching gifts. So as they raise money, this is through one of the hospital networks, but all the hospitals are going to participate in this to make sure that the victims of this senseless act of violence that, again, there just aren't words. We want to do everything we can to make sure the victims are brought back in every way and supported in every way that we can. We're not going to let this community be defined by such a, if I had more sleep, I might have a better vocabulary. Anyway, I do think that the first responders were unbelievable, and their ability to work together and coordinate. Our support from the federal government has been incredible. Secretary Napolitano called me from Homeland Security early this morning and wanted to do everything she could. She was a little late because President Obama called me before that, but not until after he called Mayor Hogan. He called the police chief. I mean, the whole country recognizes that this is something that we don't accept, we can't explain at this point, but we're not going to just let it happen to us. We're going to push back. Mayor Hogan's not here. His leadership has been remarkable, and in times like this, you see, what is the true quality of people and how can they deal with situations that, there's no training, there's no way you can prepare for something like this. And I think the way he's handled all the integration of the different efforts between the federal and the state, the county and the local, it really is a remarkable skill. And he's been able to keep everybody focused together. No one's pointing fingers. Everybody's moving forward to the next step. All right, this has happened. What do we do next? So in that sense, and Chief Oates, unbelievable. I don't think I've ever done this, but I think you guys should all give Chief Oates a hand. So with that, I'll give it back to Chief Oates.
Okay, thank you, Governor. I want to point out that standing behind me are quite a few of our elected city officials and our state representatives. Congressman Perlmutter is also with us. And also joining me here is Special Agent Jim McCone of the FBI and Special Agent Andrew Traver of ATF. And our federal partners have been absolutely tremendous in supporting us. I really want to start by saying how proud I am of the men and women of the Aurora Police Department. And the Fire Department, Mike Garcia from the Fire Department, the Chief of the Fire Department, is also here with us. Okay, we got to straighten out some numbers. There are a total of 70 injured in this event, and as of this time, 12 dead. Still, the number is 10 in the theater. The last of the bodies were removed from the theater a little after 5 o'clock this afternoon. And I want to correct one thing. I think earlier today I said that the others were all hit by gunfire. I now know that a handful of the people who were brought to area hospitals were not hit by gunfire, but suffered other injuries as a result of the chaos and trauma in the theater. And I can't tell you how many of that is, but it's a small number. Nearly everyone was shot. Little information about our subject and the weapons he obtained. In the last 60 days, he purchased 4 guns at local Metro gun shops, and through the internet, he purchased over 6,000 rounds of ammunition, more than 3,000 rounds of .223 ammunition for the assault rifle, 3,000 rounds of .40 caliber ammunition for the 2 Glocks in his possession, and 300 rounds for the 12-gauge shotgun. Also through the internet, he purchased multiple magazines for the .223 caliber assault rifle, including one 100-round drum magazine, which was recovered from the scene. I've been asked, was the weapon automatic or semi-automatic? I can't answer that question right now, but even if it was semi-automatic, I am told by experts that with that drum magazine, he could have gotten off 50 to 60 rounds, even if it was semi-automatic, within 1 minute. And as far as we know, it was a pretty rapid pace of fire in that theater. This evening at 4 o'clock, members of the police department and the many supporting agencies that have provided victim service advocates to support us met with approximately 70 members of family and friends who have not had an accounting of their missing loved ones. We met with them for approximately 90 minutes. We discussed all our efforts to identify the 10 bodies in the theater and did the best we could to deal with their grief and anguish. We are hopeful that sometime in the next hour we will get a confirmed list of the 10 deceased, and we will begin the agonizing process of meeting with those families and confirming what has happened to their loved ones. I can't emphasize enough the support of all our colleagues in local law enforcement in handling that extraordinarily difficult task, and we're also aided by our own police department psychologists. Aurora Public Schools has made available 2 high schools for tomorrow, beginning at 9 a.m. for professional grief counseling and other resources, including the resources of Aurora Mental Health and the Red Cross. Those 2 schools were open at 9 a.m. Superintendent John Barry was with us to meet with the families, and the support of the superintendent and the Aurora Public Schools has been absolutely tremendous. In addition, I'll talk a little bit about the Paris Street location. We evacuated 5 apartment buildings, including the apartment building of the subject. Those evacuees have been staying at Central High School, again with the support of Aurora Public Schools. With regard to the Paris location, it is a very vexing problem how to enter that apartment safely. I personally have never seen anything like what the pictures show us is in there. I'm a layman when it comes to bomb stuff. I see an awful lot of wires, trip wires, jars full of ammunition, jars full of liquid, things that look like mortar rounds. We have a lot of challenges to get in there safely. We decided this evening to postpone action on that until tomorrow sometime. All our folks were pretty well taxed and we needed a break. And we also, with the help of the federal government, we're bringing in some extra resources to consult on exactly how to deal with that problem. We are hopeful that we will address and resolve that problem tomorrow. Unfortunately, this means that the families that were evacuated have to spend an evening in the evacuation center. We are at this time allowing families one by one to go back into 4 of the 5 buildings to retrieve necessities like medication and those kinds of things. And again, our hope is that we'll resolve that tomorrow. With regard to the investigation, I can tell you we know a little bit more about our subject. We know he recently left the University of Colorado Medical School neuroscience program on a voluntary separation. We know he hails originally from Riverside, California, and attended UC California Riverside campus. Neighbors report to us that he lived alone and he kept to himself. I have the same cautions about the social media. One of the things modern investigators do is watch what appears on the internet to see what clues we can find, and we know that you do that too. Okay? And in the era of blogs and everything else, we just caution you that everything you read may not be true. Okay? With regard to our theaters in Aurora, there are 4 theaters in Aurora that show this movie, and until further notice, we will have some extra security at those theaters out of an abundance of caution. And I will tell you, I've been getting phone calls from some colleagues around the country asking about this, and I told them, I don't know what you should do at your theaters, but that's what we're going to do in Aurora for a while. We are fully staffed in all our districts. We are on 12-hour shifts because of the demands to support the crime scene and the new event on Paris. And thanks to the Arapahoe County SWAT team and the Denver Police Department SWAT team, if we have any demands over the next couple of days for those kinds of assets, since we are fully taxed, we will turn to our colleagues to help us. The Aurora Town Center will be open tomorrow. They have been wonderfully cooperative with the Aurora Police Department. I have a new tip line. If there are any further tips that anyone wants to be called, it's the Crime Stoppers number, 720-913-STOP, or 720-913-7867. We're also offering a general information line for the community, not for the press. I think the press knows how to reach us. But this is for the community if they have any questions. The general information number is 303-739-1862. Our suspect is now in Arapahoe County Jail. I just got a call from the sheriff. He asked me if I wanted his picture released, and I said no. So I won't be releasing his picture for investigative reasons. He will be arraigned or have first court appearance 8:30 a.m. on Monday in Arapahoe County District Court. There has been an overwhelming outpouring of support for our families, for our victims, for our community, for our cops, for our firefighters, for our EMS people, for our investigators by this entire community. We've received letters of concern and condolences. Just remarkable. Our community restaurants started pouring pizzas and food into our station houses here just to show support for our police department, and it's just absolutely wonderful. I have an announcement on behalf of the city. Sunday at 6:30 p.m., there will be a prayer vigil right here in front of the Aurora Municipal Center. We know the governor and the mayor will speak, and there'll be an appropriate moment for reflection for our community. Finally, I want to offer a huge thanks to our coroner, Michael Doberson, for all he has done to help us with the crime scene today and to expedite the recovery and identification of the bodies, which is so, so important to our community. And in terms of the next press briefing, we expect to be able to brief you tomorrow afternoon right here at 2 p.m. I will take questions.
Chief, any sign of a motive at this point? Has he said anything about why he did this?
If we have information about a motive, we would not share it with you. We would let that play out in the course of the criminal prosecution.
Talking to you, though?
I won't talk about his admissions. Yes? My understanding is that all the weapons that he possessed legally, and all the clips that he possessed legally, and all the ammunition that he possessed legally. Yes? No, I won't discuss how he got in. That's part of our investigation. And as much as I'd like to be cooperative with you folks. The most important thing is that there is justice for these victims, and that justice will occur in a courtroom. So whenever I say no here, it's because there's a higher reason, and that is to make sure he is prosecuted correctly. Yes, ma'am. No, I can't. I gave a description this morning of his appearance. He was dressed all in black. For those of you who don't have this, entirely in black, wearing a gas mask, a ballistic helmet, a tactical ballistic vest. Tactical means places to put all kinds of gear and clips, and in addition, it was bulletproof or bullet resistant. He was wearing ballistic legging in case he took a round in the legs. He was wearing throat protection and groin protection, and he was wearing black tactical gloves. So that's what he looked like in the theater.
Chief, can you tell us if the devices that he possessed outside of the guns, how many?
I don't know enough about. So those of you who were here this morning know that I reported that he released, it appears, 2 devices that set off some sort of smoke and or chemical irritant. I don't know enough about them right now to answer any questions. Yes?
In terms of how this has affected your man and your community on a personal level, do you have any thoughts?
Our cops went through a lot. As I told you this morning, they rushed people out of that theater into police cars. I've heard some compelling stories. One of the things we are working on is how we're going to deal with our own trauma. And we spent some time today with our 3 department psychologists. And somehow in the next couple of days, when this has slowed down, one of our highest priorities is to deal with our own officers and how they cope with this event. And that's really all I have to say about that. Anything else? Yes?
Where did he get the armor? Was it standard military issue, police issue?
I don't know the answer to where he got the armor.
What about the mask? What kind of mask was it?
It was a gas mask is what I know. Okay?
Talk about the families that are evacuated. How many are they?
You know, I apologize that I don't know how many families are evacuated. There are a total of 5 apartment buildings. They're all roughly the same size. They're 3-story buildings with anywhere from 6 to 10 units on a floor, so you can do the math.
Talk to us about the armor that the police officers were wearing, the ones that apprehended him. Obviously, SWAT was not on scene yet, but they got there really quickly. So
the officers who responded were wearing a regular uniform equipment, including ballistic protection. We had a lot of people out last night because it was a Friday night, and we have a special summer initiative underway where there's extra officers on the street. So we were very, very fortunate that we had about 25 officers there like that. And as I said earlier, in the end, somewhere between 150 to 200 officers and deputies fairly quickly thereafter.
What are your suspicions, Chief, about this?
Sorry?
How long do you believe you've been planning?
I have no way to answer that question. And if I knew, I wouldn't.
Does he have an attorney? There were normally officers with off-duty security and weren't on.
I was asked if he has an attorney. Yes, he has an attorney. And the question, I'm sorry, was?
Yes, you mentioned that Aurora City usually works off-duty security at the theater.
Yes, and we usually work off-duty security at the theater on weekends. And this was a Thursday night, and we were not there. But we were there within about 90 seconds.
Chief, how are you getting through this? How are you?
Oh, I'm doing just fine. Yes, sir.
What I asked you about his appearance since his arrest. What is his demeanor?
I have some information from my detectives on his demeanor since his arrest, but I will not share it with you. One more question.
Did any of the bullets go through the adjacent theater?
I don't know how many bullets went through the adjacent theater. I know enough went through that one person was hit. Okay, that concludes this briefing. Tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. Thank you very much, folks.
That was a news conference from authorities in Aurora, Colorado. As you could see, obviously, the chief, and we heard from the governor earlier, everyone there is working extremely hard. It's very exhausted. Joining us now is